Tony and Jesse were the night cleaning crew for the Grayson Psychiatric Hospital, a decrepit complex on the edge of town that had been closed for over a decade. The hospital was scheduled for demolition in a week, but the city wanted it cleaned out first, just enough to keep the contractors safe when they brought in the wrecking balls. Tony was a compact powerhouse of a man, no taller than 5 feet 5 inches, with biceps that strained the sleeves of his janitor's uniform. He didn't talk much, didn't need to. One look at him lifting industrial trash bins like they were paper cups told you everything. Jesse, on the other hand, was all charm and shine. Tall, lean, movie star handsome, with a head of perfect dark hair that fell into his eyes when he laughed, which was often. The two made an unlikely duo, but they worked well together. Their last shift started at midnight on a Thursday. "Place still smells like ghosts," Jesse joked as they walked in, flicking his flashlight toward the empty nurse's station. "Ghosts don't stink," Tony muttered, unlocking the supply closet. The building was silent, except for the occasional groan of old metal and the skittering of unseen vermin. As they moved through the third floor, the isolation ward, Jesse paused outside one particular door. Room 313. It looked newer than the others. Untouched. Clean. "No one ever cleaned this one," he said, frowning. Tony dropped a bag of old linens into the bin and turned. "Then we clean it now." Jesse pushed the door open. The room was pristine. No dust, no mold. Just a single bed, with leather restraints, and a rusted observation mirror on the wall. His reflection looked wrong. His smile twisted downward into something grotesque, even though his face remained neutral. Tony saw it too. Weird-ass mirror. "Let's get this over with," Jesse said. They began cleaning, but the lights flickered. When they came back on, Tony was alone. "Jesse?" he called. No answer. He checked the hallway. Empty. The hospital had grown too quiet. Then, bang! A door slammed down the corridor. Tony ran toward the sound, fists clenched. He wasn't the kind of man to scare easy. He found Jesse standing at the end of the hallway, facing away. "Hey, idiot. You good?" Jesse turned slowly, but his face wasn't right. His skin sagged. His eyes were too wide, and his mouth hung open as if something behind it was controlling the movement. "Tony," it said in Jesse's voice, but stretched, distorted, like it was echoing from a well. "Come see what I found." Tony took a step back. "You're not Jesse." Jesse's body jerked violently, like a puppet on tangled strings. He began laughing, mouth open far too wide. From inside that gaping grin, a second voice hissed, "You let us out!" Suddenly, every door in the hallway slammed open. Figures emerged, some in straitjackets, others in hospital gowns stained brown and black. Their faces were blurry, flickering like static. Their hands clawed at the walls, the floor, and each other. Tony ran. He bolted down the stairs, but the layout had changed. The hallways twisted. Doors led back into the same rooms. Mirrors showed rooms that didn't exist. He heard Jesse's voice again, close now, whispering, "We were never patients. We were waiting." He stumbled into the basement. It was full of old records, all burned around the edges. He picked one up. Room 313. Subject, Jesse Whitman. Committed 2005. Unreleased. Dangerous. Tony's stomach dropped. Jesse had never told him about this place, never told him he'd been here. A scream erupted behind him. Tony turned just in time to see Jesse, or the thing wearing him, rushing forward, limbs snapping in unnatural ways. Tony swung the flashlight, striking it across the jaw. It didn't flinch. As Jesse lunged, Tony did the only thing he could. He dove into the records room and slammed the heavy door shut, trapping himself inside. The thing outside laughed and whispered through the crack. You were his only friend. He wanted you to stay. Now, Tony waits. The doors won't open. The lights won't turn off. But the mirror in the corner. It's starting to reflect someone else's face. Tony had never believed in supernatural crap until tonight. Trapped in the records room, the air thick with dust and dread, he kept staring at the mirror in the corner. It wasn't his reflection anymore. It showed Jesse, bound in a leather chair, screaming silently in a dark, stone-walled room. "Jesse," Tony muttered, "you're still in there." That thing wearing Jesse's body, it wasn't him. Jesse wasn't the enemy. He was a prisoner. The mirror flickered, then displayed words etched in red. He broke the seal. Only blood opens the gate. Tony stepped back, breathing hard. Blood opens it? He glanced around, saw a broken filing staple, rusted and jagged. Without hesitating, he jabbed it into his palm. Blood dripped onto the floor, and the mirror shimmered. A hum filled the room. The walls vibrated. Then, crack. The mirror split down the middle, revealing a passage. Tony didn't think twice. He stepped through. The other side was wrong. It was Grayson, but not as he knew it. Everything was tinted blue, like moonlight soaked through every wall. The floor was made of glass, and below it, dozens of twisted souls crawled, whispering nonsense. The air tasted like metal. Tony pushed forward, guided by the sound of Jesse's screams echoing down the halls. He found room 313 again, but the door here was covered in veins, pulsing, alive. He placed a hand on it. "You want blood?" he growled, and shoved his bleeding palm into the center. The door opened with a wet shudder. Inside, Jesse sat slumped in the same chair from the mirror. His body was pale, and something black slithered around his chest like a leech. When he saw Tony, his eyes lit up with recognition. But he couldn't speak. His mouth was sewn shut with thick wire. Tony didn't waste a second. He charged forward and ripped the black creature off Jesse's chest. It screeched, biting into Tony's shoulder, but he slammed it against the wall over and over until it dissolved into black mist. The wires on Jesse's mouth unraveled on their own. "You came for me," Jesse croaked. Tony helped him to his feet. "Of course I did. I don't leave people behind." The walls began to tremble. "You need to get out," Jesse said. "It's collapsing. This place, it's a cage built from what they did to us. To all of us." "Then let's break the cage." Jesse stumbled, but Tony threw Jesse's arm over his shoulder. They ran. Figures emerged from the walls, nurses with eyeless sockets, children with stitched mouths, doctors with bone-white hands. Tony roared and swung a rusted metal bar he'd grabbed along the way, knocking them back. He kicked open doors, smashed through hallucinations, never letting go of Jesse. At the end of the hallway, the mirror shimmered. The way out. But the thing that had worn Jesse's skin stood in front of it now, twitching, grinning. "You don't get to leave," it hissed. "You belonged here the second you stepped through that door." Tony didn't slow down. He barreled into it like a train, tackling the monster through the mirror. Glass shattered around them. Tony hit the ground on the other side, back in the real world. The entity shrieked, caught in the broken shards of the mirror, twisting like smoke in a bottle. Jesse tumbled out after him, coughing, whole and free. The mirror cracked one last time and then turned black. 1 week later, Grayson Psychiatric was reduced to rubble. Tony and Jesse sat on the hood of Tony's old pickup, watching the dust settle. "You really came for me," Jesse said quietly, staring ahead. "Even when I was that thing." Tony shrugged. "You were still you. Just needed someone to knock the nightmare off." Jesse smiled, his perfect hair a mess for once. "You know, for a short guy, you're kind of a badass." Tony snorted. Yeah, now buy me a beer." They drove off, the smoke of the past behind them, but neither would ever forget what waited on the other side of the mirror. And deep in the ruins of Grayson, a single shard of glass gleamed red in the moonlight. The end, for now,